All right, YouTube, this is the first stand-up YouTube video I've done in a while. I don't have the green screen. It's a huge project to set it up and take it down, and all the lights are still packed away, and I didn't know if the batteries were charged, but I do have the whiteboard that everybody loves so much. Now, I spent all day looking for the red marker and I could not find it, so everything's just in black, no colors. The Czech Republic, over the past week and a half, held elections for the regional councils for the different regions of the Czech Republic, and also for 1/3 of their Senate. Now, the Senate has 81 seats. They're elected for 6 years, and every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election. And there's some substantial differences in how things went down between the Senate election and the regional council elections. I'm going to get into a little bit of that. The big takeaway was the Social Democrats, the big socialist party in the Czech Republic, they were completely devastated. I mean, they were just annihilated both in the Senate election and the regional election. Now, in the regional election, their seats were replaced by a more radical party. In the Senate election, most of their seats went to people who, at least on paper, are center-right. So the Czech Senate has actually decisively moved towards the right. And the way it works is they have a round one where there's a whole bunch of different parties, and if no one gets 50%, the top 2 people go on to a round 2, and everyone has to go back and vote a second time. Now, the president of the Czech Republic, he's part of ANO, which means yes. It's basically like a big tent pro-business party, more or less center-right. They were the dominant party in regional elections, but they didn't do much in the Senate election. They actually went from 2 of these seats to only 1. They did have a very large amount of their candidates go on to round 2, but then almost all of them lost in round 2. Then you got the Social Democrats. They held 10 of these seats. They went from 10 to 0. And of those 10, only 2 of them went to other openly left-wing candidates. At least on paper, only 2 out of 27 seats went to people who are openly on the left. So you've got ANO is part of Renew Europe. There's also Sen 21, had 2 seats, kept their 2 seats. Now, this is a broad coalition that does include some parties that seem to be left-wing, so those 2 could be closet leftists. The Czech Republic is not like Sweden, where candidates openly brag about how left-wing they are. So in the Czech Republic, you still have people who masquerade as centrists or even center-right, but then are left-wing when they get into office. And so then all these parties are part of the EPP, which is the main center-right grouping in the European Parliament. Now, the big winner is called Mayors and Independents, STAN. And so they went from 1 seat to 10 seats. Now, the Civic Democrats, ODS, they're part of the European Conservatives and Reformers. Now, the parties in the ECR are generally much more conservative than the EPP, although I think the Civic Democrats have been going downhill and letting people down. The founder is the former President Klaus, and I've always liked Klaus. I still like Klaus, but he hasn't actually run the party since around '06. And I'm going to get into this when I talk about the results of the regional election result, but I think that ODS, the Civic Democrats, they're already selling out in the aftermath of regional council elections. There's a party called, well, I don't know how to pronounce their name, but I'll just call it SVO. And it's basically a more hardline, conservative, libertarian, Eurosceptic party. This is the first Senate seat they've ever won. So it's a tiny party. This was a huge, huge victory for them. So once again, the takeaway here is that the Czech Senate has moved further to the right on the political spectrum, at least on paper, if a bunch of these people don't sell out. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the regional council election. Now there's 675 seats. These are the legislative bodies that rule the regional governments of the Czech Republic, minus the city of Prague, which has its own separate thing. Now, for the second time in a row, ANO, which is Babis's party, he's the president, they completely dominated. They got 178 seats, and that's completely different than the Senate election, where ANO only ended up with 1 seat. Now, the Social Democrats, completely devastated. They ended up with 37 seats, down 88. And all their supporters went to the Pirate Party, which is a much more radical, openly left-wing party. The leader of the Pirate Party is openly affiliated with Antifa. Now, I believe there could be a silver lining there, because instead of having a Social Democrat Party, which in the Czech Republic largely masquerades as a moderate party, instead of having these guys acting like moderates, you have a much more openly radicalized left that's much easier for the common person to identify and see what they really are. In third place, the Civic Democrats, ODS. Fourth place is SPD, Freedom and Direct Democracy Party. This is the Czech party that is part of Matteo Salvini's group in the EU. They actually came in fourth place vote-wise, but they came in seventh place seat-wise. And I'm not sure why that is exactly. And they also really underperformed compared to the polls. So there's something like 30 parties that won at least 1 seat. These are just the ones that got the largest number of seats. And most of these parties only got between 4 and 7% of the vote. And so the Civic Democrats got like 6.9%, and SPD got 6.1%, but SPD got less than half as many seats. And in the polls, SPD was polling as high as 10, 11, and there's even one where they got 11.5%. And so for whatever reason, maybe they didn't have candidates in some of the regions, but they underperformed compared to the polls, and they got a really low amount of seats for their vote total compared to some of these other parties that got fewer votes than they did. Now, the Czech Communist Party was also wiped out largely. They ended up with 13 seats, down 73. Now, the Czech Communist Party is a really odd thing that just adds to how complicated Czech politics are. So some of you have seen the videos I did with Peter from the Czech Republic, and he's talked about this. Most of the communist parties in Europe have rebranded under different names. They've dropped the word communist, and it's mostly young people, and they're mostly about radical cultural Marxism. They don't even care about economic Marxism anymore. It's all about, radical social issues, remaking society. The Czech Communist Party, which is allied with the groups I just mentioned, still uses the word communist. It's mostly older people, and a lot of their politicians have been very conservative on social issues. They're opposed to the cultural Marxism, and they still support the economic Marxism. And I think it's largely been like a communist nostalgia party for the elderly, but they're evaporating now, and I think their supporters have gone in a whole bunch of different directions. The regional councils have probably moved more to the center-right than they have to the left, although I mentioned that the Civic Democrats seem to be going downhill, and I mentioned that President Klaus founded the party. I've always liked him. I still like him, but he doesn't run the party anymore. And they're already selling out. And so the big villains, according to the Czech media, are ANO and the SPD. And the SPD in particular was really viciously attacked in the lead up to this election. The Civic Democrats are already refusing to cooperate and form coalitions with the SPD or the ANO. And in one region, they have already formed a coalition with the radical Pirate Party when it was absolutely unnecessary. They only did it because they didn't want to form coalitions with these two parties. And so, unfortunately, the Civic Democrats, they're doing better, but they're also going downhill and moving to the left. They're going the way of Merkel's Christian Democrats in Germany. All right, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. The politics in the Czech Republic are really complicated and confusing. They got so many different parties. But Peter will probably be posting in the comments, so he might answer some of your questions. All right, thanks for watching this video. Click the like button, post a comment below, and click the subscribe button. New video every once in a while.